And you're not overweight because you're lazy. You're not overweight because you have a bad gene. You're not overweight because your stomach's too big or because you have a stomach. You're overweight because you have nutrient deficiencies and your body is starved to death. Your body knows it's starved to death. Your body forces you to eat to fill up your nutrient tank, but the food that you're eating doesn't have the nutrients you need. So you'll pig out at Olive Garden because you have to. You'll eat 3,000 calories in 30 minutes, and 2 hours later you're starving again. And then you go to your medical doctor and he tells you your stomach's too big, so gastric bypass or lap band surgery. Or, take speed, take amphetamines to amp you up so much you don't want to eat. Or you're lazy, get on the gym, get on the treadmill. It's nuts. I'm telling you, it is out of control. Which is why my mantra, fire your MD. Because they've got nothing for you for this stuff. Now, heaven forbid you have a bullet in your arm, your leg snaps in two, you have a bleeding artery, go to the MD. Because that's their wheelhouse. You need surgery, go to the MD. And the stuff that we can do with surgery now is awesome. But for everything else, they're the leading cause of bankruptcy and the leading cause of death. And their philosophy of healing is outdated, old-fashioned, incorrect, and dangerous.
My approach was one of, yes, I'm happy to have the Western system engage the Western system in the way that it's strong. And there are many ways that the Western medical system is absolutely fantastic. Sports injuries, plastic surgery, dealing with some kind of mechanical issue, a joint that's bad, replacing a joint, mechanically, or I should say surgically extracting tumors from the body and growths. There's some amazing things that can be done in the West. But if you want to cure yourself of serious disease, if you want to cure yourself of emotional concerns and emotional diseases, things that are centered in the limbic system, things that are really hard to determine what the issue is, in my opinion, the best approach is absolutely the Eastern system. Because it's going to approach the person holistically. And it's going to say, let's look at your entire life, just like a naturopathic doctor does. That was the difference between when I went to a Western doctor, they just wanted to know what was wrong. The naturopathic doctor wanted to know all about my life and my lifestyle. They're trying to determine what I wanted to know when I had cancer. Why did you get this? Because they know the answer isn't just dissolving the tumor. That isn't the answer. The answer is dissolving a tumor, getting rid of that, but also resolving why that tumor was there. What I found personally was that this Eastern approach, this holistic approach, what it does is it brings you into accord with your body because you learn your body. In the Western approach, you learn the disease. You learn what cancer you have. You learn all about that cancer. You learn everything to know that there is to know about that cancer. Nothing wrong with that, but that's your focus. In this system here, I was learning about my body. I was learning about my liver. I was learning about my kidneys. My naturopathic doctor was teaching me all about my liver and my kidneys, all about my colon. I was learning how my colon was 80% of my immune system. I was learning about how all my my emotional pharmacology, all those chemicals are made in my colon. And so if I was in a state of disequilibrium as far as my emotional content and my emotional state is concerned, my mood, that it likely was my colon. I learned that from this holistic approach. I learned what gave me cancer. I learned that it was the toxins. I learned that my kidney was on the edge of failing because even though that had nothing to do with my testicle where the cancer was, it was my liver and it was my liver and it was my kidneys that was causing these disruptions. And so I learned all about these organs. And when I learned about these organs, I began to learn more and more about my body, and it was like a domino effect. And as I learned more and more about my organs, I started to learn more and more about my emotional content. I learned more and more about my pharmacology. I learned more and more about how my body functions. And when you love something, you learn about it and know everything there is to know about it. It was in September. I went in to see Dr. Chen. I saw him every Friday, all throughout my cancer journey. I went and saw him every Friday. And it was, for some reason, the date September 8 pops in my head, but it was at the beginning of September. And he ended the session a bit differently, and he said, I need to speak with you for a moment, Chuck. And this was, very, very unusual for Dr. Chen, because he just didn't say much. And he said to me, Chuck, you've reached a point where you can go no further unless you are willing to give more of yourself to this to beat it. I was trying to dissolve this tumor that was growing in my right testicle, and I didn't have access to activated cannabis oil, and so I was missing an essential component to holistic treatment of cancer. An absolutely paramount necessity. And so because of that, I was compromised in my ability to fight the disease naturally. And so he said, you've come to loggerheads with this thing. You've come to a point of impasse. And he said, you can continue the road that you're on, and it's going to just stay like this. And you're going to, you're not going, in other words, he was as kindly as he could say it, which is one of the greatest things about these Eastern doctors, is that they're just so gentle and kind in their approach. And he said, you can keep going as you're going, but he said, I don't think you're going to get any further with it. He said, you're going to have to leave your family and go to the Orient, and you're going to have to go into a constant state of meditation for upwards of 16 hours a day. And he said, you're going to have to limit your diet. And he said, you're going to have to, in other words, up your holistic game. And when I was in it, I distinctly remember when he said that to me, I totally remember thinking, okay. Because you are so, when I was in it, that mindset, you're so driven and you're so focused that it's just whatever you have to give me. I'm ready. And it's like maybe it's like I've never been a soldier, but maybe it would be like a soldier who has just been in training, and they get their opportunity, and they go and they're doing a special task, and the commander of the unit said, you're gonna have to go in there, and it's gonna likely really cost you. And you don't sit and think. It's like, okay, give me the order, I'm going. And that's what it was for me. Chen was a real magical being, and for me, and it was just like, okay. And then you go back then when you start having to live with that decision, and you also realize as an individual, I have these commitments that I have in my life, namely my wife and my children, and they need me in the sense of they're also entangled in it and a part of and intertwined and interconnected within life. And I was not the kind of personality that could sustain a choice like that, meaning a choice of abandoning these commitments for a period of time. And so when I was faced with that holistically, and realizing that I was going as far as I could go and still maintain a 40-hour-a-week job, I had gone as far as I could go and financially, as well as my parents who were helping me or were basically funding the whole enterprise. And they had said, this is as far as we can go. There are options. You can go to like the Gerson Clinic in Tijuana, but it's like $6,000, $5,000 a week to do that. And I probably would have had success doing that. You can go to down into Brazil, in Ecuador, where Young Living has a facility there. And they can actually do frankincense injections, where they inject the tumor with actual frankincense. That's not allowed in America, Of course it isn't. But they can actually inject the sacred frankincense directly into the organ. It's all done medically, and they've had amazing success doing that. Now it's certainly not the funnest experience to go through. But, you know, I was ready for that. I was ready for whatever bloodbath awaited me. I was ready. You know, I had completely released from death. I had completely released from my concerns, my materialistic concerns, meaning my concerns for my body and living and so forth. I had completely released to that. And I had befriended death, and I was okay with that. And I was okay with dying. And there was no issue with that. So if it did mean that I had to go to this, you know, horrific situation, I was ready to go. But, so after a long talk with Jenny, and after really thinking about, you know, all that was being done, and that I just didn't have access to a couple of critical components to actually be able to kick this thing's ass and finish it off holistically. And so I agreed with myself that I would go in and do the surgery, and that's one of the great things about Western medicine, and I really want to make this clear, because a lot of people probably think that I'm, you know, think that Western medicine is a metaphor for Satan, and I don't think that. Western medicine is really, really good at extractions, surgical extractions. They're very good at that. But where they completely fail, and where I was unwilling to bend, is how they treat these chronic, long-term diseases that have a lot to do with the limbic system, that have a lot to do, meaning the emotional seat, that have a lot to do with really, really difficult and complex and complexified bacterial and fungal infections. And so I knew, I was confident in my heart that I had resolved the reason why I had contracted the cancer, which was just my incredible toxicity. And when I go over naturopathic medicine in my talks, I'll cover how I knew I was that toxic and how all that went down. But I was confident that I had resolved those things, and I was confident that the reasons why my body broke down and you know, caused this tumor to form. I felt confident that I had resolved that, and so I agreed to go in for the surgery, and it was great. I found a doctor who tragically had lost his wife to cancer, and she had tried both holistic and natural medicine. He had lost, this is interesting, it's interesting this just came up. He lost all or almost all of his medical friends because he started treating his wife naturally. This is unbelievable, and it's so amazing how similar it is to monotheism. But there's this rejection when someone doesn't abide or comply or be complicit with the demand of the group. There's this ostracization that happens, and that's what happened to my doctor, to this Western doctor I found that was this incredible. He was completely, he had like 25, 30, maybe 40 years experience, knew completely what he was doing, and he had sympathy for me and compassion for me because I had fought it holistically. And he described this bloodbath he went through with his friends because he started treating his wife holistically, and they treated him horribly, and he went through a very terrible episode with that whole ordeal. Ended up losing her. They tried both the natural medicine as well as Western medicine. They were unsuccessful with both of them. I don't know if they tried cannabis oil or not. I never asked him that. But so he really had compassion for me, and so he did an amazing job, and he went in and he removed the tumor, which was the flowering of the disease, and so I got rid of that. And when I came back out, you know, he said to me, this was really interesting. When I came back out for the surgery, he said to me, you know, I want you to know something. He said, when I cut you open, he said, you know, I've done this surgery. He said, I can't even tell them apart anymore. But he said, you know, your abdomen was different than any other abdomen that I had opened before. And my ears kind of perked up. And he said, the cleanliness and the liveliness of your organs. He said it was like they were exuding out of your body. And he said, I've never seen an abdomen so clean as yours was. And I get alligator eyes with it, because it was so much work to do that. And don't ever kid yourself. Holistic medicine is hard work. It really is. It's the reason why you become transformed when you engage your natural self, this incredible aspect of you. The reason why you transform is because you really, really experience living embedded in nature and completely coming into a fundamental understanding of your physiology, but at a level that isn't biologic, but at a level that's intrinsic. It's at a transcendent level, and you realize the potential that your body has, and you see in others this potential, and when they don't take it on, it's like this side of you, it's like, no, if you could only understand the incredible strength and power you have as a human being. Because we as a culture have been so beaten down, being told that we're, faulty or a mistake or, have to be saved, just this, it's like it's just beaten into us that we're less than, that we're lack, and so you believe it, and you don't think you do, but you do. And that was one of the reasons why I wasn't able to go any further, because I still hadn't moved into this space that realized really what is available, what is there. And so that's why I'm so passionately trying with everything I have and with everything that I am to communicate to people what they have available to them at all times. It's always there. And you don't have to do anything for it. There's nothing to do for it. It's there. No, there's no requirement. There's no condition. There's no condition. But you have to release to realize it. You have to let go. You have to let go. You have to stop clutching. You have to. You have to stop believing. You have to. You have to let everything go. You have to let everything go that you loved and adored and appreciated. You have to let everything go. And that's that whole thing that from death comes life. That's what that's all about. I died when I had cancer. I died. And that's why I'm now alive. Same thing happened to Paul. Same thing happened to Jesus. Same thing happened to Al-Halaj. Same thing happened to all these people. It's the same thing. And it happens every day. I'm not anything special. That's my point. I'm not anything special. And this kind of a treatment, this kind of medicine, this natural way that doesn't poison the body, awakens that within you. It is a spiritual experience. Fighting cancer is a spiritual experience. And when you only go about it with method and with a set, straight way and path, and this is what we're going to do, it's all straightened out, it's all figured out. You're not aligning to the disease because the disease is wiggly. The disease is just like you are. It's just like you are. It's unpredictable, and it doesn't follow a straight line. And you have to come into amalgamation with it. You have to coalesce with it and not hate it. You can't hate it. If you hate it, you'll die. You have to come into accord with it. And having the experience of this cathartic experience that I had materially caused this gateway to open spiritually. And so this holistic sense became very real to me. And that's why I'm so passionate that I know that if I had poisoned my body, I wouldn't have had that realization. Because I would have been sickening and sickening and sickening my body. It wouldn't have been becoming more and more and more clarified. It would have becoming more and more and more cloudy as I get more and more deeper into the poison, you see. And so I was always happy with my decision. And what I learned is I learned all about my body, and so I began to really love my body. And so it was different than this kind of doomed and you know, focused on the tumor and the cancer and stuff that I was experiencing with the Western approach. This was more like my whole life was being addressed. Everything about me was being addressed, and my thinking process and all, it's just everything was addressed because I was detoxing my system. And that was another critical thing that happened was, as you're detoxing your system, you are cleaning your system. Meaning the cloudy brain, the bad sleep, the inability to think of new ideas, the inability to recover from bad news, just the day-to-day stuff all began to clarify because I was cleaning my system. My system was finally being cleansed of all the crap and garbage, all these poisons that I've exposed to, that we're all exposed to every day here in the environment. And when you get all that stuff, when it all begins to clean out of your system, you begin to be able to see more clearly. Meaning, as you walk through life and as you approach life, it all is clarifying. And so often when I talk to chemo patients, their whole life is clouding. They have no energy and they're vomiting and they don't want to eat, and they because they're sick, they're being poisoned. And so you don't want to participate in life. You're just like, I just want to freaking survive, right? Whereas with this approach, you know, I'm active and participating. And I mean, I talk to people that are on the methodology, which is based in enzymes, probiotics, cannabis oil, apple cider vinegar, acupuncture, coffee enemas, juicing, Gerson therapy. It's engaged in all these things. And what I have found is that when people start to engage those types of principles, they actually wake up energized. They actually wake up like wanting to keep going and wanting to keep doing it. It's not like, okay, I've got to find a reason to keep going on when a person's been poisoned with this chemotherapy stuff. So when you're deciding what you want to do as far as dealing with your body's problems and issues, in my opinion, it's best to look at the whole picture. Not just, hey, this is the treatment that they do and this is exactly the process, right? And we're going to, like with a pair of binoculars, we're just going to focus in on allopathic reductionism. Surgery, chemo, drugs. That's it. That's all we're going to focus on. And so that's why in 50 years, there has been no further progress in dealing with cancer in the West. And they have illegalized all the solutions that are available, which actually work and don't have these terrible side effects, because they are coming along and they're saying, we don't recognize these very subtle aspects of you. And we're going to assume that they don't exist because we can't map them, and then we're going to try and heal people while ignoring this entire intrinsic nature within them. We're going to completely ignore that. We're going to try and heal them. They have everything, human beings have everything to do with their intrinsic nature, their spirit. And this is completely not recognized at all by the methodologies engaged for fighting disease in the West. It is totally and completely rejected.